After a month of fighting under George B. McClellan in the Peninsula Campaign, we moved our 5 corps of soldiers to the outskirts of Richmond in Henrico County, Virginia. I, Samuel Claycomb, am a proud member of Corps 2, 2nd Division, 1st Brigade, 1st Company, Massachusetts Sharpshooters. We were a sharpshooting regiment attached to the 15th Massachusetts under the command of Willis A. Gorman. I am proud to be servicing my country and fighting for the preservation of the Union and the freedom of those enslaved peoples. Our mix of greenhorn soldiers and veteran fighters were all under the command of Major General George B. McClellan. McClellan's chain of command included Brigadier Generals Edward Sumner, Samuel Heintzelman, Aramis Keyes, Fitz-John Porter, and William Franklin, who each commanded their own corps of soldiers. Under each of these brigadier generals were more generals commanding each division, who each presided over their own brigades. Each brigade was then split up into regiments of men from various states. My particular division, Division 2, was headed by Brigadier General John Sedgwick, who presided over Brigadier General Wallace A. Gorman of the 1st Brigade. During this Peninsula Campaign, our Union soldiers have been pursuing General Joseph E. Johnston of the Confederate Army. In this pending battle of Seven Pines, we are most likely going to go up against Johnston and his generals underneath him, Brigadier General William H. C. Whiting, Major General D. H. Hill, and General R. H. Anderson. Couch's men lined up on the north in the woods surrounding the Fair Oaks Station, and Sedgwick's men are perpendicular to them along the Grapevine Road. Another portion of Couch's men were positioned next to the Fair Oaks Station on the other side of the railroad tracks that run through the middle of the battlefield. Casey's men were positioned in the earthworks in front of Kearny's men, who are in front of Heintzelman's men, who bring up the eastern rear of our forces. We positioned a picket line far out in front of Casey's entrenchment with a small plot of barren land with a small number of men positioned between the picket line and Casey's entrenchment. Casey's men in the entrenchment have artillery to help keep that position secure, and Sedgwick's forces also include a regiment of artillery. Silas Casey reportedly spotted Confederate activity near the road. According to our sources, Johnston is in control of the Confederate forces, which is an advantage for us because he is known for his poor commanding and disorganization. According to sources, Johnston is planning to attack the south end of the Chickamauga River, where we have already stationed soldiers. It is a wet and muddy day. We stand ready for an attack, but we are still unsure what Casey is seeing. Around 1 p.m., the Confederates attack. Casey uses his artillery to slow the advance of the Confederates, but it is no use. The Confederates rip through the first line of Casey's defenses and continue to beat it down until 3 p.m. Casey and his men lose the earthworks to those men under the command of D. H. Hill. Casey and his men retreat to meet up with Kearny and Heintzelman's forces. Our southern side has been pushed back. Eventually, the 2nd Corps was able to take back the Grapevine Bridge and stop the onslaught occurring to the 4th Corps. During the battle, Johnston stayed too close to the Confederate lines where he was shot and had to give up command to G.W. Smith, who also had to give up command due to his failing health. This gives an advantage to us over the Confederacy because they were leaderless. The fighting continued until nightfall, with no side gaining a real advantage. We stayed up that night discussing strategy and trying to discern what the Confederacy's next move will be. Finally, we were released to sleep. I awake to the shouts that Hill is renewing the battle at around 6:45 a.m. The sounds of war begin again, but they feel like nothing. I have become accustomed to them, and I am not fazed by the gunshots and cannon fires. Whiting's forces were facing Sedgwick's and Couch's combined forces, including me. After yesterday's loss, morale is low, and no one is confident that anything is going to go our way. The first shots are fired, and they continue for hours. Our lines hold against all odds of being overrun by the Confederates, who have an extra fire in them from yesterday's victory. After hours of fighting, Whiting calls off the advance. We had won the Battle of the Northern Front. Looking back upon the battle, it was considered to be inconclusive, with neither side taking a decisive victory. For 3 weeks, we sat idle until the fighting was renewed at the Battle of Oak Grove on June 25, 1861. The battle marked the beginning of the 7 days battle, which saw General Lee force General McClellan away from Richmond and back down the peninsula we had worked so hard to conquer. It seemed overwhelming and heartbreaking, to say the least. The battle resulted in a massive amount of casualties. 790 of my fellow soldiers were killed, 3,954 of my comrades were wounded, and 647 were either captured or missing. The wounded were taken to a nearby farmstead that was made into the field hospital, like many homes were when a battle took place. It was shocking to say the least to know that I had survived such a hard battle, and that those I talked to and laughed with and trained with did not make it. The Confederate fared worse than we did, with 980 soldiers killed, 4,749 wounded, and 405 captured.